Picture this. You check your credit card app before your first coffee. You made a payment last month. You always do. But the number looks almost exactly the same as it did 30 days ago. That feeling of paying and somehow not moving isn't just in your head. And right now, it's happening to more Americans at once than it has in 15 years. As of the first quarter of 2026, the share of credit card balances that are seriously delinquent, meaning 90 days or more past due, climbed to 13.12%. That's up from 12.3% just a year earlier, and it's the highest that number has been in a decade and a half. This isn't a headline about other people's bad decisions. It's a pattern showing up across households that look, on paper, a lot like yours. So let's actually understand what's happening. We'll cover the mechanics behind it, why it's accelerating, and what genuinely helps versus what just profits off the panic. Let's start with what 90 days delinquent really means, because the term gets thrown around like it's just a scary label. It isn't. It's a specific milestone. Most credit card issuers give you some room after a missed payment, a late fee, a warning, maybe a ding to your credit score. But once a payment is 90 days late, lenders classify that account as seriously delinquent. It's the point where the issuer stops assuming you're just having a rough month. Instead, they start treating the debt as at risk of never being repaid on the original terms. The serious delinquency rate on credit cards climbed to 13.12% in the first quarter of 2026. A year before that, it was 12.3%. That's not a huge jump in raw percentage points, but scale matters here. We're talking about roughly 1 in every $8 of card debt now sitting in that seriously behind category. And when you zoom out, this is the highest that rate has been in 15 years, since before most people currently struggling with it had even opened their first credit card. 15 years is a meaningful marker. It means we're not looking at a normal seasonal dip or a one-quarter blip. It means the conditions pushing people into serious delinquency have been building for a while, and they crossed a threshold we haven't seen since the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. So the natural next question is, where did all this debt actually come from? To understand the delinquency spike, you have to look at the pile of debt sitting underneath it. Total U.S. credit card debt reached an aggregate balance of $1.252 trillion in the first quarter of 2026. That number on its own is almost too big to feel real. So here's the more useful comparison. It represents a 63% increase over 5 years, up from a pandemic-era low of $770 billion in the first quarter of 2021. Think about what that 5-year window actually contained. In early 2021, a lot of households had unusually low card balances. Stimulus payments, reduced spending during lockdowns, and paused student loan payments all freed up cash that went toward paying down revolving debt. That $770 billion number was, in a sense, artificially low. It reflected a temporary pause, not a new normal. Then normal life resumed, but at higher prices. Groceries, rent, insurance, childcare, all of it climbed faster than a lot of paychecks did. For millions of households, the credit card stopped being an occasional convenience and became a bridge for everyday gaps. This didn't happen because people suddenly became careless with money. It happened because the cost of simply maintaining the same life went up faster than income did. That gap gets absorbed somewhere, and for a lot of people, it got absorbed onto a card. Here's where the numbers stop being abstract and start explaining why balances feel so hard to shrink once they've grown. The average interest rate for credit card accounts that actually accrue interest climbed to 22.15% in the second quarter of 2026. That's up from 21.52% just one quarter earlier. 22% isn't just a number on a statement. It's compounding against you every single month. Here's the mechanic, explained plainly. Credit card interest typically compounds daily. That means the interest you owe today gets added to your balance, and tomorrow you're charged interest on that new, slightly larger balance too. It's a small effect on any single day, but it stacks continuously, all month, every month. Now combine that with how minimum payments are usually structured. A minimum payment is designed to cover the interest that's accrued, plus a small amount toward the actual balance, sometimes a very small amount. If you're only ever paying the minimum on a card sitting near 22% APR, a large chunk of every payment can go straight to interest. The underlying balance moves at a crawl. That's the treadmill feeling from the very start of this video. You're not imagining it, and it's not about willpower. It's arithmetic. working exactly as designed for the lender's side of the deal. When people feel that treadmill under their feet, the natural instinct is to look for a way off, fast. And that instinct has created an entire secondary industry, not all of it honest. Credit and consumer reporting complaints filed with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau jumped from roughly 150,000 in 2019 to more than 5 million in 2025. That's an increase of about 3,700%. This is not a natural rise in people simply noticing errors on their credit reports. Regulators point to automated credit clinics and social media influencers as major drivers of that surge. These are businesses that mass file disputes on behalf of paying customers, sometimes disputing accurate information alongside inaccurate information. The goal is essentially flooding the system in hopes that some negative marks get removed simply because a lender doesn't respond in time. This matters because it's easy to confuse someone who files a dispute for you with someone who's actually protecting your rights. You have a real legal right to dispute inaccurate information on your credit report. That's not a scam, that's the law working as intended. The problem is the industry that's sprung up around charging people fees to do something they're entitled to do for free. Often this comes with promises no one can actually guarantee, like erasing accurate debt or deleting a legitimate collection account just because you paid for the service. And the credit bureaus themselves have felt the volume. Nationwide consumer reporting agencies closed over 2.1 million complaints with non-monetary relief in 2025, up from 1.3 million in 2024. That's a real number of people getting real corrections, but it's happening inside a system that's also being clogged by mass-filed, sometimes frivolous disputes, which makes it harder for the legitimate cases to move quickly. So what do you actually do with all of this? First, it helps to know that the system itself is currently in motion. The CFPB is in the middle of rolling out updates to its complaint infrastructure throughout 2026. This includes new identity verification steps, updated automated platforms, and adjustments to how disputes get processed. Because of that, the exact timelines for how quickly a dispute gets resolved are shifting right now. That's exactly why it's worth checking the CFPB's own website for the current process, rather than relying on a rule of thumb that might already be out of date by the time you read it. What hasn't changed is the underlying principle. You have the legal right to dispute inaccurate information on your credit report directly with the credit bureau at no cost without needing a paid intermediary. If something on your report is wrong, that path exists, whether or not you ever hear an ad for it. Second, and this has nothing to do with disputes, the most reliable lever for actually shrinking a high interest balance is understanding your real numbers. That means your exact APR, your actual minimum payment, and how much of that minimum is going to interest versus principal. That's not a magic fix, but it turns an overwhelming number into a solvable one. Third, if the balance feels unmanageable, nonprofit, accredited credit counseling agencies exist specifically to help people build a realistic repayment plan. This is often available for free or very low cost, without promising to erase debt that's legitimately owed. That's a meaningfully different offer than the erase your credit report pitch, and it's worth knowing the difference before you pay anyone a fee. None of this is personalized advice for your specific situation. Only a licensed professional who actually knows your numbers can tell you what's right for you. But understanding the mechanics matters. What delinquency actually measures, how compounding interest works against a minimum payment, and how the dispute system is supposed to function versus how it's being exploited. All of this puts you in a stronger position than most people currently navigating this quietly and alone. If this helped, the last few months of headlines actually make sense. That's exactly what this channel is for. We untangle one confusing piece of the American debt system every week. No shame, no panic, just the mechanics explained clearly. Follow along for the next one. And if you're dealing with any of this directly, the CFPB's official complaint portal and nonprofit credit counseling agencies are both free, legitimate places to start. No influencer required.